Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October Virtual Edmonton Business Advisors YEGBiz Leader Circle. YEGBiz was created to bring together like-minded business people like yourselves to celebrate entrepreneurship in Edmonton, and we like to do that by hosting these events from time to time. We also communicate throughout the year on various social media channels, and you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook under YEGBiz. Today, we welcome a bunch of newcomers to the group and a bunch of returning participants, and all of you are leaders in the Edmonton business community. We have some great discussion planned for today. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about some good news about our city. Then we'll have some polling questions, which will kind of frame today's discussion. Following that, Korean will be interviewing our guest today, which is Myrna Bittner, CEO and co-founder of RUNWITHIT Synthetics. And then we'll finish off with a Q&A session and an opportunity for some discussion and possibly some breakout rooms if people are interested in that. So I'll start off by then quickly introducing myself and the others involved in YEGBiz. So I'm Darren Buma. I'm a partner at KWB Chartered Professional Accountants. And at KWB, we provide great advice and resources to simplify your accounting experience, strengthen your operations, and help you achieve the results you want for your business. In the past, my partner David Wickenberg has handled these introductions, and he is on the call. He's just driving in from the airport, I believe, and planning to be with me today, but I don't know if he's on yet, as Richard Willett, my other business partner. With us today are our strategic partners in YEGBiz. You've already been hearing from both Curry and Therakin of Strategy Peak, a strategic marketing consultant group, and Sarah Therakin of Strategic HR Services, a full service human resource consulting firm. This event today is possible to be held by the support of our sponsors. We have Field Law, a local law firm with more than 120 lawyers, with specialties in almost every area of law, including labor law. So if you have questions about some of our opening discussions, do feel free to reach out to them. Normally we have Britt Tetz and Lyndon Thiessen on the call. I've just been kind of scanning the list of attendees. I'm not sure that they're here yet. KB Benefits, represented by Chelsea Barlow and Dan Kickham. So I see Dan's on the call. KB provides tailored group benefits for your business. Also with us today, Chris McLeod, sorry, I'm looking for my list. I don't think Chris has joined us yet, but from Edmonton Global, our first ever regional economic development corporation, working to create local, regional, provincial, national, and global partnerships for the city. And finally, with us today is Catherine Vu from Proactive IT, and Proactive offers demand IT services. So as I mentioned, I have some good news to share about our city. So according to Stats Canada, Edmonton's unemployment rate was the lowest in Alberta during the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, Edmonton is responsible for 25% of all new jobs in Canada over the past 5 years. The Conference Board of Canada rates Edmonton's economy as highly diverse. And finally, the Alberta Enterprise Corporation reveals that Alberta is now home to more than 3,000 tech companies, a 233% increase since 2012, with 30% of those based here in Edmonton. Over 40% of local tech companies are exceeding revenues of $1 million, a 66% increase since 2018. So some good things to be proud of, and we're excited about opportunities in Edmonton. Now, as promised, we're going to kick things off with a few questions to kind of stimulate your thoughts and get us ready. So thanks, Samantha, for throwing those up, and we'll just give everybody a couple minutes to read through those and submit your answers. There we go. Korean. I'm stimulated by the questions. I seem to almost have a little bit of doomsday theme to them. So this could be an interesting discussion that we have coming up.
Well, no one saw COVID coming, right? It's one of those kinds of things that we'd always thought about pandemic, disaster recovery planning, and all that kind of good stuff. And then all of a sudden it happened, and it wasn't anything of what we had planned for. And so this has remember the SARS epidemic in the early 2000s, and that was supposed to do us in and things like that. This came out of right field, and no one saw that. So simulation planning and things like that is a good idea.
Yeah, well, and SARS, interesting. We've had a few like that, but they really haven't impacted us because they didn't have the global reach that the COVID has had.
Yeah.
So.
I will tell you that, when more than a couple of our clients, when COVID first hit, they were onslaught with people canceling orders, withdrawing contracts, those kinds of things. So, even though there's few industries that just keep going, obviously, but other industries were drastically impacted. They came up on the other side of it, but they were all scenarios that they weren't planning for. How do those polls look?
They look good. I think we've stopped at 27 people. So I will end the poll and share the results.
Okay. Darren, are you going to summarize this?
Yeah. So I was just finding it on my screen here and scrolling through them. So clearly COVID-19 is on everybody's mind as probably the largest single impact that we're going to be facing, continuing to face, and going forward, because that not only is it identified at 37%, but the 48% likely includes a bunch of COVID as well. So, but that means people are concerned about other things, right? So, do you believe that Edmonton is equipped to handle this? So clearly 2/3 of the group feel that there's more work that has to be done. Interesting, usually when you have a group this size, you got a bunch of varying opinions, but not surprisingly, answer to question 3 is unanimous, that everybody thinks that more can and should be done. So
that bodes well for Myrna.
This is going to be a great discussion today. And then I think everybody admittedly self-admits that individually they're not prepared for some of the things that we suggested might happen. So there could be a rush on toilet paper in the next couple of days here, I would think. So, and
ivermectin, pick it up at your local veterinary supply store. Don't do that. Do not do that. You did not hear that here. I'm joshing. All right.
Well, thanks, Corinne. I'll turn things over to you.
Okay, really good. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Let me just adjust my screen here, and let's just see. There we go. So welcome to another YEGBiz event. This is our October session, and we have a very special guest speaker today, Myrna Bittner. And Myrna and I have known each other for a while now, and I've been, twisting her arm for several years. She's got to come on to YEGBiz and share some of her entrepreneurial travail, some of her stories. It's actually a very intriguing story. She and I did a brief pre-interview last week, and the business that Myrna started in is not the business that she has today, and I think a lot of people will recognize that in the sense of how their entrepreneurial journey has gone, or how their company's journey has gone. And often what you plan for is not what you end up doing, or what the clients want. So I want everybody to welcome Myrna. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a background on who she is and such. Give me 1 second, pull this up. So Myrna Bittner is the CEO and co-founder of RWI Synthetics, an artificial intelligence modeling company that creates single synthetic environments, live geospatially accurate cities or regions, complete with their people, activity, policies, technologies, development, and infrastructure to calculate the impacts of all kinds of technologies existing and anticipated under any conceivable scenario. In other words, digitally model and optimize all of the what ifs of the future before trying to build or change it. Their models are particularly valuable for decision makers facing disrupted, unprecedented futures, and include mobility, energy resilience, sustainability, public health, equity, and economic impact calculations. Everyone, give a big YEGBiz welcome to Myrna Bittner. Myrna, say hi.
Hi.
There we go.
Thanks, Carrie.
I will tell you, I'm always relieved to see the guest speaker on the screen. Because it's just not a show without the guest speaker. So, Myrna, that was a lot of heady words and such to describe what you do.
Yes.
Maybe you could simplify that for us. Maybe give us an example of the kind of work you've been doing and what this means for the average citizen in a city like Edmonton.
Sure. So you can think of it as being a little bit like SimCity, except for real. And so, this is kind of not where we started, but where we ended up. And we started growing out of kind of a need for complex systems to kind of face futures that they hadn't faced before. And in the digital realm is where we started. So understood that, no matter what kind of testing center of excellence you had and how much money you poured into it, even the big guys, when they released or deployed their systems into the wild, as we called it, and humans interacted, God forbid, with those systems, and connected systems interacted with them, there was always really unexpected results. And sometimes these were safety critical, sometimes they were financially frustrating, sometimes they prevented, treatment to healthcare. And so it was really critical that we kind of build this ability to create reality before it hit. And that's where we started in digital systems. And then over the years, after addressing a whole bunch of different kinds of digital systems, so everything from in-vehicle device-based systems to wearables to satellite systems and media and communication systems, we started having this really odd capability of creating synthetic realities and pulling in these entity models and making these entities into anything they needed to be around these systems so that they thought they were deployed for real. And then in 2019, we were asked to do a city. And that's when kind of everything changed. And we thought, oh, okay, well, we've been doing human behavior modeling for a long time, and activity and geospatial systems and activity, and why not, put those all in one place and see what happens.
So can you give me an example of some of the more common simulations that you might find yourself doing?
I think the questions that we're being asked now are not common. People have saved up their biggest, baddest, hairiest issues for us, and things that they didn't even dare to imagine. But some of the themes of what we're dealing with are what are the ripple effects when I make a change or when I encounter a scenario. I want to see it. I don't want numbers and graphs, and I want to understand, for example, when I add bike share parking, at my train stations, who uses them and how and where they're going, and what that enables, whether that enables more equity or economic access for those people. There's so many questions that come out of that simple choice when I'm designing this transit station, and I put 5 bike stall parking spaces instead of 10, what are the impacts of those choices? And that's a really simplified version of what we are asked every day.
Really. So you and I had a pre-interview last week, and one of the things you had mentioned to me then was that a lot of your clients start off in disaster recovery planning.
Oh yeah, that's a favorite one. Yeah, because of course that's one of the big scary ones is, what happens if the lights go out, black sky, earthquakes, hurricanes, tell us pandemics, tell us what is going to happen, or show us, because we need to see that.
And so the kind of disaster, now you just came off of a project in Phoenix, didn't you? Can you give us give us a description of what you did in Phoenix?
Sure. So that was a really interesting one. We always feel like we end up in these very foreign and very large rooms that we might not necessarily belong in, but somebody's placed us there. And in this case, it was the Electric Power Research Institute. And they had asked us the question about what happens, as they framed it, dual disaster. So during COVID-19 in a very hot place like Phoenix, with COVID rates that they knew were coming but hadn't quite seen yet, if the power goes out. So tell us, what happens not only, to because they're coming at it from a utility perspective, what happens to our consumption rates during movement and control orders. So their whole landscape had just changed during COVID with how and where they were supplying power, given how people's behavior had changed. Lo and behold, it all kind of comes back to human behavior. And so their systems were disoriented, their forecasting was disoriented, and they were, first off, show us this new reality, and then turn the lights out and show us everything from what happens to these people who are at elevated COVID risk in their homes, who are enabled only by energy assisted breathing, who have respiratory conditions or who are elderly, and vulnerable populations who don't have access to cooling, or who are in those apartment blocks that are completely thermo insulated and just begin to cook within a certain number of minutes after power goes out. Show us all of that, but then also show us how that affects, as minute by minute goes by in those power outages, it is going to affect the trust of our clients and our consumers of energy, as well as their long-term engagement. So we had to dig into the psychosocial aspects and human behavior research and experience with outages and how that changes their trust relationship with their utility, who goes out and buys generators after that, no matter what the cost, how that creates an inequity in terms of self-sufficiency in the future of power supply. You name it, the questions just kept coming, and that's how we spent a good part of our COVID last year, was answering those questions on a very public stage.
Got it. Now, it seems to me that, municipalities, especially when they're considering long-term capital infrastructure, let alone disaster planning, they should have these models up and running all the time. Are the models that you're seeing right now in a computer simulation, or how do they do it in the past? Is it just guesswork? What do they do?
I wouldn't, I guess they have told us, a lot of the leaders have said, and they just go like this, because there is a profound amount of data. There's a profound amount of analysis. Most of it is based on historicals. So looking back, at things that have happened or comparable things, a lot of analysts and kind of guesswork. It's very siloed. So oftentimes they get a lot of information from a lot of different, kind of sectors, but none of it kind of connects together. And so they're frustrated, and they don't, oftentimes our clients don't feel like they have adequate understanding of how these things are all interconnected and how it could potentially play forward. None of them feel like, I don't think that they're in a position where they can absolutely nail it and predict, but they want to build things with as much understanding as possible and that are as robust as possible, so that no matter what the scenario, they have systems in place that can react and respond and minimize intelligently the impact of those of things that are bad, and on the same spectrum take as much advantage or opportunity of things that they can use to enhance quality of life or impact.
One of the reports I just read recently was about the Valley Line for the LRT, let alone the West Line, and whether the West Line especially, whether it'll even be relevant by the time it's done. And it strikes me that this would be the kind of planning simulations that they would have to do to find out what a 25 years out, 20 years out, what the demographic will do with an LRT line out to the west of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those questions come around, the looking at everything from the potential for different densities and demographics and population changes and who is living in those, houses or regions and their kind of incentives to use public transit or, even first last mile solutions. So some of the work we did in Kuala Lumpur was really around, not just that their train station isn't there and that the trains aren't there. It doesn't matter how many super trains they build if people aren't able to get there. And once they get off at the other end, aren't able to successfully navigate their destination. So, that was a lot of the work we did there too. And those kinds of things are things that people can be looking at and planning and understanding and incorporating. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Myrna, you're not working with a bunch of spreadsheets, you have a demo for us, don't you?
I do.
Let's do a demo.
I can show you this. So this is another one of our COVID projects that was a follow-on to our work with the Electric Power Research Institute.
Yeah, really good. While Myrna's loading that up, everybody who has a question for Myrna, please put it in the chat box. We're going to call on you to ask it, right? Or if you want us to ask it for you, that's fine as well. But if you'd like to ask that question, let us know in the chat box and then everybody gets a shot. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. Okay, Myrna, go ahead.
Sure. This is a scaled down example of what we do. And I might fast forward in a few spots here, but this was a project that kind of shows how we collaborate with outside organizations too. So it's not just, we know everything. We work with great partners.
Welcome to Your Synthetic Base, a single synthetic environment or energy future lab of your base and your people, produced by RUNWITHIT Synthetics with subject matter expertise from Electric Power Research Institute. Reimagining energy driven by disruptive changes in goals in sustainability, readiness, and resilience will require a new approach to designing and deploying various combinations of solutions that meet specific locational needs and objectives. And single synthetic environments are the new approach RUNWITHIT and EPRI are proposing. A synthetic base is a complete geospatially accurate living environment composed of sophisticated interconnected models that include your military community, their lives and livelihoods, their energy choices, motivations, barriers, existing and new energy technology, grid ties, relationships and economics, your climate, your housing, critical mission and campus infrastructure, along with mission readiness considerations, energy security, resilience impacts, and sustainability outcomes. Because every base is different, your single synthetic environment recreates all of the unique details of your base in order to supply in situ, in silico context and results. Single synthetic environments are also extensible. Any similar aspects of bases, new technologies, or scenarios modeled for other bases can be replicated and rapidly shared, accelerating insight across environments. Single synthetic environments are not limited by data availability. The models themselves complete and create data. Modeled entities are reactive, responsive, and context-aware, producing the emergent behavior necessary to quantify unprecedented scenarios, inflections, and their knock-on effects. The scenario approach supports actionable decisions through rapid and repeat exploration of alternatives. Failures can be identified and preferred futures can be quantified, along with implications such as short and long-term costs. RUNWITHIT's synthetic base furnishes a systems approach for innovating all aspects of your changing energy landscape today and in the future. As threats to energy grids increase, connecting measures to ensure mission readiness, energy security, and resilience become critical. The additional pressure of increasing electrification from electric vehicles to HVAC and communications demands more adaptive scenario planning and education. Here is one example. In this synthetic base, we implemented vehicle-to-base technology. Given the 9,667 private vehicles parked on this base every day, we implemented the community's anticipated EV adoption rate of 30%, mapped vehicle mix and their battery capacity to income and purchasing demographics, and modeled owner behavior patterns to discover available charge. In this case, vehicle-to-base technology could utilize the 2,900 electric vehicles representing 176.9 megawatt hours, or enough energy to power 6,552 homes for a day. For a base such as Beal, this represents approximately 13 hours of their daily installation consumption. And
I'll stop there, even though we don't stop there. But this was a project where we combined forces with the Electric Power Research Institute after we did that dual disaster. Yeah. And to really address the issue on bases across the US that are almost completely reliant on grid power. And Black Sky is one of those disasters that is increasingly a part of our modeling ask. And for Biden, who came in and mandated the electrification of fleets on bases at a really accelerated rate, we were trying to help them understand how they could utilize the batteries in those transportation fleets very realistically to maintain their 14 days of critical resilience during Black Sky, which is there's no power anywhere. So that was the beginning of that.
Very cool stuff. And that's definitely not like looking at a bunch of spreadsheets, that's for sure.
No,
no, that's very cool stuff. I remember a couple of years ago watching a cyber attack on a single massive German pump at a hydroelectric dam. And the cyber attack made the pump go crazy and eventually burn itself out. And it's a single pump. You don't go down to the Walmart and order a new pump. You wait 8 months for this manufacturing facility in Germany to manufacture another one, And so that means 8 months of disruption to that power grid that hydroelectric facility was servicing. So it's those kinds of things. Now, of course, those are, disaster recovery type of situations or disaster planning type of situations. But it occurs to me that this is something that a municipality, for example, may choose to do for a variety of different things. Oh, what's this? Sherwood Park, Edmonton? There we go. There we go. Well, can you tell us what Edmonton's up to?
They said I could talk about it. So I'll just introduce it in brief. But we're actually working on some of the hydrogen modeling and hydrogen economy in Edmonton as being a first piece of a really kind of longer thread in Edmonton. So we've returned to our roots, as we'll say, because Synthetic Edmonton was one of the first cities that we built outside of Silicon Valley in 2019, and we did it to validate our energy modeling. So now we're returning to Edmonton and with a whole variety of stakeholders and building a single synthetic environment for Edmonton for use by, I'll say, a whole variety of stakeholders who are trying to figure out and look at energy transition, as well as a whole bunch of interesting parts of our future: density, development, you name it, transportation.
So when we say single synthetic environment, so we're putting all the models in place, right? Like the transportation model, infrastructure models, and various kind of water models, for example. And so it's all together interacting, all the data is interacting with each other.
Yes.
Okay, interesting, really good. Now, what are you doing? Are you running this on a Dell laptop? Is that what's going on? Or it seems a little sophisticated for that. What kind of systems do you need to get this up and running?
It is. Well, thankfully, a lot of our AI technology we developed in the beginning in the 90s. So had to be very clever about efficiency. And that enabled us to get a big head start in this field of massive kind of multi-agent system modeling. And we do have our own server infrastructure that is, fully capable. We have partnered and have dabbled in the U of A's supercomputer group, and probably will look to utilize that more as we grow, because some of the scales of these models are just unbelievably massive. And we do some work, and some of our technical clients have their own server infrastructures that we utilize. But we smile sometimes, because when we are looking at systems, and sometimes we're asked to inundate those other systems because they want to understand what happens to them. we can take a Dell laptop and we can use it to create enough data and activity that it often overwhelms even really large systems. So we've had to be clever.
Now, this artificial intelligence, it's all artificial intelligence, what you're doing, is it not? Or there's certainly some models in there, some perhaps linear regression models, things like that, but it's all AI, is it not?
Yeah, we use it selectively. So we have a whole model catalog, we call it, that we use to apply it. It all depends on the entities that we're modeling, how they behave, or which ones need to react and respond and how. And so we oftentimes don't even describe ourselves in the market as being artificial intelligence company. We're more or less, a de-risking and advanced simulation company to them, because that's what solves their problem. So how we and when we apply AI is really kind of selective. When we do, we have found, because these answers are so, kind of relied on, and the decision makers need to be really assured at what they're seeing, we have to be completely explainable and manipulatable as well. So oftentimes, they need to understand where that behavior is coming from. So we can't black box anything.